Most men look at a Quonset hut and think of a dusty old World War II military storage shed sitting forgotten in the middle of a field somewhere. They picture rust, they picture cold concrete floors, and they picture a building that absolutely nobody wants to live anywhere near. That is the single biggest financial mistake you can make right now, because the men who are quietly buying these dirt-cheap mini Quonsets are sitting on some of the most versatile, durable, and genuinely livable structures available on the open market today. And here is the part that is going to completely blow your mind. Some of the best options on this entire list start at just $800. We are counting down 7 mini Quonsets that almost everyone walks right past, starting with the most budget-friendly entry point on the market and ending with the undisputed goldmine of the entire category. Stay with me all the way to number 1, because what you are about to see there will completely change the way you think about affordable, permanent living structures forever. Before we get into the list, there is something critical you need to understand that most people completely miss when they first start researching Quonset structures. A mini Quonset is not just a curved metal roof sitting on a concrete slab. When a man sets one of these up correctly, using proper insulation, a solid foundation, and thoughtful interior planning, he ends up with a fully weather-tight, wind-resistant, snow-load-rated structure that costs a fraction of what any comparable stick-built construction would run. The arch design alone is a pure engineering marvel. It naturally distributes all weight and pressure across the entire curved surface, which means it can handle severe weather conditions that would absolutely destroy a conventional shed or prefab cabin. These buildings were used by the military for a very specific reason, and that reason was pure structural performance under the most demanding real-world conditions imaginable. The fact that most people still scroll right past these kits online or walk straight past them at agricultural supply stores is exactly why the men buying them right now are getting such extraordinary deals. The gap between what these structures actually cost and what they deliver in real-world value is honestly staggering, and this countdown is going to prove it entry by entry. Number 7. The Corrugated Arch Panel Kit. This is the entry-level gateway into the world of mini Quonsets, and it is where a lot of men make their very first move into alternative living structures. You can find these kits from manufacturers like SteelMaster and Absolute Steel, starting as low as $800 for the most basic configurations available on the market right now. These kits ship as flat corrugated steel panels that bolt together in a precise curved arch pattern, and a man with basic mechanical skills can assemble the complete shell in a single weekend with just one helper by his side. The finished structure typically runs anywhere from 10 feet wide to 14 feet wide, with total lengths that you can customize simply by purchasing additional panel sections when you place your order. What makes this specific option so wildly underrated is the total cost picture when you actually sit down and run the real numbers. When you factor in a simple compacted gravel pad foundation instead of a full concrete pour, and you add a basic insulated door kit along with a couple of ventilation panels at each end wall, a man can have a fully enclosed and weather-tight structure standing on his property for well under $3,000 total investment. The men who discover this option and deploy it as a hunting retreat, a weekend cabin, or an off-grid remote shelter are genuinely stunned by how solid and tight the finished product actually feels in real-world conditions. But here is the question that almost nobody thinks to ask until after they have already purchased their first kit. These same corrugated panel systems can be physically extended at any point in the future simply by unbolting one end wall, adding more arch panel sections down the length of the building, and reattaching the end wall. Your structure can grow alongside your changing needs over time, and that is something a traditional stick-built cabin can absolutely never offer you no matter how much money you eventually pour into it. Number 6. The Pioneer Steel Mini Arch Building. When a man steps up slightly in budget from the basic corrugated panel kit, he enters a completely different level of engineering quality and long-term livability. Pioneer Steel manufactures a dedicated line of mini arch buildings that come pre-engineered at the factory to meet specific regional snow load ratings and wind speed requirements right out of the box. This is a massive, practical advantage for any man living in a climate that experiences serious winters or regular high wind events throughout the year. The base price for a Pioneer Steel mini model in the 12-foot wide configuration starts around $2,000 for the complete steel shell package. And what that money gets you is genuinely impressive by any objective measure. The steel gauge is meaningfully heavier than what you get with entry-level kits. The arch profile is tighter and more aerodynamic in cross-section, and the end walls come pre-punched for standard door and window rough openings directly at the factory. A man can rough in a proper insulated door and a pair of standard windows without any custom cutting, grinding, or metal fabrication work required at all. The interior ceiling height at the peak of the arch typically runs between 7 and 8 feet, depending on the specific width configuration a man selects, which means any full-grown man can stand completely upright throughout the entire interior space without any problem whatsoever. Here is what almost nobody talks about when they research these buildings online. Because the steel arch itself carries 100% of the structural load, there are absolutely zero interior support columns and zero load-bearing partition walls required anywhere inside the space. Every single square foot of interior floor area is completely open and fully usable from wall to wall, and that level of interior design flexibility at this price point simply does not exist anywhere else in the affordable building market today. Number 5. The Bale & Country Mini Building with Living Conversion Potential. Bale & Country is a brand name that most men immediately associate with farm equipment, livestock panels, and agricultural feed storage, which is precisely why this particular option flies completely under the radar for anyone thinking seriously about alternative living structures. Bale & Country produces a line of mini galvanized steel arch buildings that are technically marketed through retail channels as agricultural storage units, but the men who are purchasing them and converting them into hunting cabins, seasonal retreats, and fully functional tiny homes are getting an absolutely extraordinary value that most of the market has simply not figured out yet. These buildings are available through major farm supply retailers, including Tractor Supply Company, which means a man can often walk into a physical store, pay cash, and arrange local delivery within days, rather than waiting several weeks for a specialty factory order to be processed and shipped. Prices for a mid-range Bale & Country mini building typically land between $1,500 and $2,500, depending on size, region, and current retailer pricing. And the hot-dipped galvanized steel coating means the exterior requires virtually zero maintenance for several continuous decades of service. But here is where the real goldmine moment happens for the men who actually figure this out before they make their purchase. Because these buildings are classified and sold as agricultural storage structures rather than residential buildings, the permitting requirements in many rural counties across the country are dramatically simplified, significantly reduced, or in some cases completely eliminated, depending on local jurisdiction and land classification. A man can set one of these up on a rural property, add a quality wood-burning stove, run a modest solar panel array along the curved exterior roof, and have a fully functional off-grid retreat without navigating the enormous mountain of paperwork and inspection schedules that any traditional residential construction project demands of a builder. That is not a loophole or a workaround of any kind. That is simply how agricultural building codes function across large portions of rural America, and the men who fully understand this reality are taking advantage of it every single day. Number 4. The General Steel Mini Building Series. General Steel has been manufacturing arch buildings for industrial and commercial clients for several decades, but buried within their full product catalog is a line of smaller, residential-scale structures that most private buyers never discover because they automatically assume General Steel only works with large commercial and government contracts. That assumption is completely wrong, and it is costing ordinary men a genuinely significant financial opportunity every time they dismiss this manufacturer without checking their smaller offerings. General Steel mini buildings start around $3,000 for a base shell package in the 12 to 14-foot width range, and the engineering quality that comes standard with every General Steel product is on a different level compared to most farm supply alternatives available in the same general price territory. Every General Steel building ships with a complete engineer-stamped set of drawings that are specific to the buyer's local building codes and regional climate zone. That means if a man does want or need to pull a formal building permit for his structure, the complete engineering documentation is already fully prepared for him before the first bolt is ever tightened on his building site. The steel panel system uses a unique overlap and bolt connection design that creates an extremely tight and weather-resistant outer shell. And the factory-applied coating system means the exterior maintains its appearance and protective properties for an exceptionally long period with minimal maintenance required from the owner. If you are finding real value in what we are breaking down today, and you want to keep receiving content about smart, cost-efficient building strategies and alternative living structures that the mainstream housing conversation completely ignores, hit the subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss what we put out next. Here is what makes General Steel genuinely compelling beyond the material quality. The company offers a live design consultation service that helps a man configure his specific building for whatever use case he has in mind. Whether that is a guest cabin, a dedicated home office, a workshop, or a full-time permanent living space. And that level of direct factory support at this price point is almost completely unheard of anywhere else in the alternative building market. Number 3. Rhino Steel Buildings. This is a name that serious alternative builders and rural property developers know extremely well, but the general public has almost no awareness of this manufacturer at all. And that gap in public knowledge is creating a remarkable buying opportunity for every man who takes the time to do proper homework before making a purchasing decision. Rhino Steel produces a line of mini arch buildings that are engineered to an exceptional structural standard, factory tested for regional wind and snow load resistance, and delivered directly to a man's building site as a complete, ready-to-assemble kit package. What genuinely separates Rhino Steel from most competitors in this specific space is the company's serious commitment to supporting the buyer through the entire building process, from initial purchase all the way through to final completion. A man who purchases a Rhino Steel mini building gets full access to detailed assembly documentation, step-by-step video tutorials covering every major construction stage, and direct telephone support from the company's technical team throughout the entire installation process. For a first-time builder who has never assembled a steel arch structure before, that level of hands-on ongoing support is genuinely priceless and can save him from costly construction mistakes that would otherwise require professional intervention to correct properly. Pricing for Rhino Steel mini buildings in the 10 to 16-foot width range typically lands between $3,000 and $6,000, depending on specific configuration choices, selected accessories, and delivery distance from the nearest manufacturing facility. But here is the calculation that almost nobody bothers to run honestly when they are comparing building options side by side. A Rhino Steel mini building at $5,000 total, delivered and fully assembled by two motivated men over a long holiday weekend, represents a per square foot construction cost that is so dramatically lower than any traditional building method available that the comparison almost feels genuinely unfair to conventional contractors and builders across the entire industry. Number 2. The SteelMaster custom-configured mini arch. SteelMaster Buildings is one of the most recognized and respected names in the arch building industry for very good reason, that goes back over 30 years of continuous manufacturing experience. They have been refining the design, the engineering standards, and the manufacturing process of steel arch structures for longer than most of their current competitors have even existed as operating companies, and their mini building product line represents some of the strongest overall value propositions available in the entire alternative housing space right now. What makes SteelMaster genuinely outstanding for the man who wants a true custom living solution is the remarkable degree of factory-level configurability the company offers before anything is ever cut or roll-formed. A man can specify his exact width dimension, his exact overall building length, his door placement along any wall face, his window rough opening locations and quantities, his end wall design profile, and even his interior partition wall rough framing locations, all before the building ever physically leaves the factory floor. That level of detailed custom configuration on a structure with a base shell price starting around $2,500 is genuinely extraordinary by any reasonable standard of comparison. SteelMaster mini buildings are fully engineered to meet residential building codes across all 50 states and multiple international markets, which means the man who purchases one receives a structure that is not only incredibly affordable, but also completely code compliant, wherever he ultimately chooses to place it. The arched roof profile sheds rain, accumulated ice, and heavy snow with remarkable natural efficiency throughout every season, and the interior living space consistently feels significantly larger than the exterior footprint dimensions suggest, because there are no interior columns, no load-bearing partition wall requirements, and no wasted square footage anywhere within the shell envelope. Number 1. The fully converted mini Quonset permanent residence. This is where everything we have covered across this entire video comes together into one complete and compelling financial picture. And this is the specific option that most people casually dismiss without ever taking the time to actually run the real numbers. A man who purchases any quality mini Quonset kit from any of the previous 6 entries on this list and commits to a thoughtful, well-planned interior conversion process ends up with something that the broader housing market simply cannot compete with at any comparable price point. Here is exactly how the complete math works when a man runs the numbers honestly and completely. Start with a quality mini Quonset shell in the 14 to 16 foot width range from any reputable manufacturer. Budget between $3,000 and $5,000 for the shell package with delivery included directly to your building site. Pour a simple concrete slab foundation or construct a pressure-treated wood perimeter-grade beam foundation for another $2,000 to $4,000, depending on local concrete and lumber costs in your area. Install closed-cell spray foam insulation across the entire interior steel surface for another $2,000 to $4,000. And the thermal performance of the finished living space will genuinely surprise any man who has never lived inside a properly insulated steel arch building before. It holds heat through winter effectively and stays remarkably cool through summer in a way that most people simply do not expect until they experience it firsthand. Add a small wood stove or a highly efficient mini-split heating and cooling system for another $1,000 to $3,000, depending on the system that best suits your specific climate conditions. Finish the interior walls and ceiling with tongue-and-groove pine or cedar planking for a warm, organic, genuinely beautiful aesthetic that completely transforms the character of the space from within and makes every visitor forget they are standing inside a steel arch structure. Install a compact kitchen unit with a small cooktop and under-counter refrigerator, a bathroom wet room with a quality composting toilet, and a compact shower enclosure, and a sleeping loft constructed above the kitchen zone using the generous vertical space created naturally by the arch profile. And a man has a fully functional, fully comfortable permanent residence for a total all-in investment that rarely exceeds $25,000, even when selecting premium finish materials throughout every surface. Now compare that number to the national median home price, which continues climbing further out of reach for ordinary working men every single year, with no sign of reversing course, and the fully converted mini Quonset permanent residence stops being an alternative option and starts being the only genuinely intelligent financial move that is actually accessible to most men in today's market. The men who worked this out and made their move several years ago are now living comfortably and completely debt-free on their own land, liberated entirely from monthly mortgage payments, landlord rent demands, and the relentless financial pressure that is quietly draining millions of ordinary people every single month without mercy. They are not living in rough or uncomfortable conditions. They are living in warm, properly insulated, beautifully finished personal spaces that they own outright, with no payments ever attached. The mini Quonset is not a compromise or a consolation prize for anyone. For the man who does his homework thoroughly and makes his move with clear eyes and a solid plan, it is the single smartest financial and lifestyle decision he will ever make for himself and his future. If this video opened your eyes to what is genuinely possible with a mini Quonset, do yourself a real favor right now. Hit the subscribe button below and turn on notifications for this channel so you never miss a single video we publish. We cover alternative living structures, off-grid building strategies, and cost-efficient construction methods that the mainstream housing conversation completely ignores week after week. The men watching this channel are the ones who are actually building real, lasting solutions for themselves, rather than waiting helplessly for the housing market to somehow improve on its own. There is always more to discover here, and what is coming next on this channel is going to be absolutely worth every minute of your time.